I found myself restless and unable to sleep on the sofa at 6 a.m. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from Harry. It seems the baby has been safely born. John, wake up. Catherine has given birth safely. We're heading to the hospital. I woke my husband sleeping next to me, and we quickly started getting ready. Catherine, Harry. When we arrived at the hospital room, besides the two of them, there was another new little life that I had to call by name. What's its name? Have you decided?
No, we hadn't even asked the gender, so we decided to choose a name after the baby's birth. By the way, it's a girl.
That's wonderful. I hope you can find a lovely name for her. Our granddaughter was asleep in Catherine's arms on the bed. Seeing her, I was reminded of Catherine as a baby.
Mom, do you want to hold her?
Can I? Then let me hold her. Her sleeping face, her weight, her smell, everything was just like Catherine's. Her adorable, innocent appearance naturally made us smile. Look, it's Grandma Mary and Grandpa John. Just as I was about to pass the little one to my husband, it happened. His face was drenched in sweat, and his body shook violently. What's wrong?
Don't bring that child close to me.
What was happening? Thinking I might have misheard, I looked at their faces, and both of them had their eyes wide open. It was clear that this was not a misunderstanding.
What are you saying, Dad?
Are you feeling all right?
No, it's different. I feel an intense heat from that child. I don't want to remember, but it's like the terrible heat from that fire.
John, is there anything I can do to help? My husband John is blind. 3 years ago, there was a major fire at the chemical plant where he worked, and unfortunately, he suffered burns to his eyes. Fortunately, he survived, but since then, he has lost his sight.
Mary, I'm okay for now.
But his spirit remained untouched by these trials, still bright and kind. The amount of pain, conflict, and effort that went into it is unimaginable. One can imagine, but to say they truly understand would be a lie. Call me anytime if you need anything.
I'm used to it by now. You can relax a bit.
He always says that, but he never truly feels at ease, always worrying both physically and mentally. Yet, despite his misfortune, my husband has a peculiar talent. Through conversation, he can glimpse the true intentions of others. He says, it's just a sense, not a superpower, but to an outsider, it might well seem like a remarkable ability. It's well known that blindness can heighten other senses, and there are theories to support this. In John's case, his already keen sense of other people's emotions seemed to have sharpened even more after losing his sight. That's why both I and our daughter Catherine often find ourselves asking for his judgment, a bad habit, because we rely on him so much. He is indeed a dependable figure. Most recently, when Catherine brought her boyfriend over, his sixth sense proved to be a valuable validation. About a week ago.
Let me introduce him. This is Harry.
Nice to meet you. I'm Harry Wilson. I'm seeing your wonderful daughter, Catherine.
Harry was well-mannered and neatly dressed, a real gentleman. And whether he was fearless or just managed to hide his nerves, he actively engaged in conversation. In this case, it was Catherine who was more nervous. It was understandably so, as her father possesses the ability to read between the lines of what others say. If something caught his attention, it would inevitably come up later. He was aware that my husband is blind, but naturally, he didn't know about his special ability to read between the lines. Despite that, even without relying on my husband, there were no obvious oddities or visibly suspicious aspects to be seen. On the contrary, I felt that he spoke in a way that considered my husband, and personally, I had a very good impression of him. The two of them originally met as colleagues at work and became close through their interactions both at work and in private. My husband listened intently to their conversation. As the sun set and it became dark, my husband shared his thoughts about Harry.
Regardless of his looks, he seems like a good person.
Hearing this, Catherine and I let out a big sigh of relief. Of course, it was a sigh of relief. On a whim, I tried to explain to my husband what Harry looked like by comparing him to a celebrity he resembled.
Oh, come on, that personality with that look. He's so perfect he might attract the wrong crowd,
he said with a wry smile. Since then, Harry has often come to our house with Catherine. Even now, he is considerate of my husband's blindness and truly sincere. I felt deep relief and joy without any shred of worry that Catherine would marry someone like him. Then, a simple question crossed my mind. Can I ask you something?
Yes, what is it?
Harry, you're such a good person. I'd love to know about your parents too. Could you tell me about them if you don't mind? After a moment of uncomfortable silence, he smiled bitterly and apologetically declined.
I'm sorry. I lost my parents in an earthquake when I was young.
Oh, I'm so sorry to hear that. I shouldn't have asked such a thing. Yet his demeanor remained unchanged.
No, it's okay. It can't be helped. But, may I talk a little about it?
His humility and consideration for others impressed me. I felt I must respond in kind. Yes, of course. Say anything you like.
Because I no longer have my parents, I often reflect on these things. I wasn't able to properly honor them, so if there's a chance to do so by proxy, I would. I think it would make them happy, and it would also give me some peace.
To me, this confession sounded like a cry from the heart. It was a torrent of emotions that could hardly be fathomed.
So, it might sound strange, but I see some of my parents in you. I want to make sure I have no regrets this time around.
As he finished speaking, I noticed that my husband had quietly appeared in the shadows. He listened to Harry's voice and nodded silently. For me, that was the greatest confirmation. Time passed, and the two were happily married. The wedding went smoothly, and afterwards, Harry moved into our house. Even after marriage, he continued to be considerate, especially towards my husband. However, there's one concern. Our house has a garden facing south, raised a step from the road, and sometimes trash is scattered there. 3 times last week, twice this week. I thought maybe a bird like a crow dropped it, but it seemed too coincidental. But even if someone was doing it on purpose, it wasn't harmful enough to make a fuss, so I decided to keep it to myself for now. Time has passed since early summer. Catherine and Harry announced they were expecting. It was truly a joyous occasion. While it was manageable with just Harry moving in, adding another person meant we had to consider moving. Considering my husband's blindness, opting for a barrier-free property wasn't a bad idea. That night, we discussed such matters. Bump. Suddenly, there was a rustling noise from the bushes at the front of the garden.
What was that?
It wasn't the gentle sound of the winds moving things. It was more like something forceful had passed through. It made me uneasy. I couldn't always rely on my husband in these situations. Determined, I grabbed the edge of the curtain and pulled it open with a decisive motion. Wow.
What's wrong? What happened?
There, lying on the lush greenery in the darkness, was the carcass of a crow. At that moment, I was sure of it. The trash in the front yard wasn't the work of crows or other animals, but a person with clear malicious intent. After reporting it to the police and having them take care of the remains, I explained the situation and my suspicions to my family.
Why didn't you say something?
Until now, the trash seemed like it could have just blown in with the wind. It's not far from the trash disposal, and I thought it might have been birds.
Well, let's think about what we can do. There's not much, but still.
Right. Maybe raising the fence would help, but it's not a fundamental solution.
Then, maybe we should get a security camera.
After discussing various opinions, we decided to install a security camera. About a week after the camera was installed, Catherine, who was pregnant, noticed trash again in the yard. "Let's see who it is," she said eagerly as she checked the camera, and the perpetrator was identified quite easily. The security footage clearly showed a woman with long black hair tossing a trash bag. Her build and even her face were clearly visible. Catherine murmured softly.
I feel like I've seen this person somewhere.
She pondered for a while, but couldn't recall, so they decided to wait for Harry to come home. That night, when Harry got home, he quickly recognized her.
It's Emily. I know her.
He explained that she had been making advances towards him for some time. Initially, he had declined her indirectly, but as her advances became more intense, he revealed his relationship with Catherine and rejected her definitively. Given this, it wasn't hard to imagine her resorting to such drastic measures.
Ah, that's why she looked familiar.
But I wonder if the police will take it seriously. You know, I've heard they often don't do much about stalkers.
With this solid evidence, I think they will. Anyway, we should explain everything to them.
Contrary to my worries, the police took the matter very seriously. Thanks to that, Emily received a stern warning from the police, and her company made her sign a statement to stay away from Catherine and Harry, and then transferred her to another region. It was indeed harassment, as suspected. Interestingly, her malice was directed not so much at Harry, but at Catherine, whom she saw as the woman who stole Harry from her. A classic case of misdirected anger. Nevertheless, peace returned to our home. The due date approached in no time. Catherine's pregnancy progressed, and she was soon admitted to the hospital for delivery. Preparing for the hospital stay, the postpartum needs, and other things kept me busy, and it all reminded me of the past. Catherine had a difficult birth, a tremendous ordeal. Though it was over 20 years ago, I remember it as if it were yesterday. Realizing that I was now the one watching over her, I felt deeply moved. Catherine went into labor at night. Therefore, my husband and I stayed home, and only Harry accompanied her.
I'm looking forward to it.
His words seemed a mix of genuine anticipation and a touch of sorrow. And no wonder, for he would not be able to see the face of his first grandchild. While I was struggling to respond, my husband seemed to have read my mind and softly added,
I've never deeply regretted losing my sight, but this time it really hurts. I wish I could have seen our grandchild's face.
In that case, I'll see enough for both of us. I promised to be your eyes, didn't I?
What can I say to that? It's out of our hands, and it's a tough question.
It seems my husband could see right through the finer details.
Even with this strange ability, I can't see our grandchild's face. Mary, would you join me for a drink?
Yes, of course. That would be fine. There's only so much I can do. If soothing him with a drink helps, I'm more than willing to do so. Restless and unable to sleep, I found myself on the sofa at 6 a.m. When I checked my smartphone, there was a message from Harry. It seems the baby has been safely born. John, wake up. Catherine has given birth safely. We're heading to the hospital. I woke my husband sleeping next to me, and we quickly started getting ready. On a weekday morning, the hospital seemed quieter than usual. There were few people around, and some in pajamas, likely patients, were at the store. Among them, a shadow that seemed suspicious without saying why caught my attention. This figure didn't seem inherently suspicious, but there was something distinctly out of place about it. My husband sensed something too.
Something feels off. Is someone there?
When I mentioned the figure, he murmured, "Don't go near recklessly," and tapped the floor with his cane. I took my husband's hand and began walking, glancing back at the figure. Catherine, Harry. When we arrived at the hospital room, besides the two of them, there was another new little life that needed a name.
Good morning, you two. How are you feeling?
Good morning. We're fine. The baby is healthy too.
That's great.
As he said this, my husband grimaced, so I quickly had him sit down. Asking if he felt unwell, he seemed fine, so we decided to share our joy instead. What's the name? Have you decided?
No, we hadn't even asked the gender, so we decided to choose a name after the baby's birth. By the way, it's a girl.
That's wonderful. I hope you can find a lovely name for her. Our granddaughter was sleeping in Catherine's arms on the bed. Seeing her, I was reminded of Catherine as a baby.
Mom, do you want to hold her?
Can I? Then let me hold her. Her sleeping face, her weight, her smell, everything was just like Catherine's. Her adorable, innocent appearance naturally made us smile. Look, it's Grandma Mary and Grandpa John. Just as I was about to pass the little one to my husband, it happened. His face was drenched in sweat, and his body shook violently. What's wrong?
Don't bring that child close to me.
What was happening? Thinking I might have misheard, I looked at their faces, and both of them had their eyes wide open. It was clear that this was not a misunderstanding.
What are you saying, Dad?
Are you feeling all right?
No, it's different. I feel an intense heat from that child. I don't want to remember, but it's like the terrible heat from that fire.
Could it be that he sensed something from this baby? After entrusting our granddaughter to Catherine, I stayed close to my husband. His shaking gradually subsided, but he was still breathing heavily. Are you okay?
Yeah, I've calmed down a bit. Mary, can we talk for a bit?
Yes, of course. I followed him out of the hospital room where our daughter and others were. We found a seating area a little way down the corridor, and I let him know.
I'm sorry for startling you. The baby is fine.
Can you tell me what happened? After a pause, he began to explain.
I must have picked up on someone's emotions nearby. It was more intense than anything I've ever felt before, like burning resentment or anger. It was so vivid, it threw me off. Sorry, the timing was bad.
Don't apologize. It's not something you can control. Resentment and anger. Unfortunately, I had an idea what it could be related to. That woman, Emily. Is she who was given a stern warning by the police and a written reprimand and transfer by her company, coming close again? I knew it was a long shot, but I couldn't dismiss the possibility. Could it be? Before I could finish, my husband interjected.
It's not impossible. Remember, I mentioned someone suspicious in the lobby earlier. They might still be around. Can you check?
Understood. I enlisted Harry's help for the search. Walking around with my husband and Catherine wasn't feasible, and alone, I might not recognize the person. Harry could move freely and knew Emily's face well, so I asked him to accompany me. However, despite covering almost every accessible area, we couldn't find her, and we returned to the hospital room empty-handed. After all, it was better if it turned out to be nothing.
Either way, the hospital is safer. There are more people around, and I can stay with Catherine and our baby. Mary, you should go home and rest.
That makes sense. Please take good care of Catherine.
Understood. Oh, and call me if anything happens.
Thus, restraining our restless feelings, we soon headed home. I didn't show it, but I wished I could have seen our granddaughter's face more. I wonder who she resembles more, Catherine or Harry. What name will she be given? It seems like another sleepless night ahead, worrying about these things. A few hours after returning home, in the evening, my husband began to speak uneasily again.
There it is again. I feel that burning heat. What is this?
Apparently, it's not something that a hospital can treat. It seems his unusual ability might be picking up on even stronger emotions and acting out. The problem is this strong emotion. For now, there's only one likely cause, and it's quite dangerous. I seriously started to think about what to do next. I wanted to call the police immediately, but lacked solid proof. If I were to confront the person, it might not only be futile, but also life-threatening. That's when I remembered the security cameras. Maybe checking those would give us some evidence. Excited, I went to check, but unfortunately, they showed nothing. Just when I felt at a dead end, like a lifeline from heaven, a glimmer of hope shone through. A message vibrated on my smartphone. It was from Harry.
Is everything okay on your end?
Despite my reluctance to interrupt their first private moment as parent and child, it was inevitable that I had to ask for his help. When I told Harry everything as it was, he quickly responded.
Understood. I'm on my way now.
I was overwhelmed with a feeling of lack of help. It was frustrating to be able to do nothing but wait during such a time. Even though I fully understood that it wasn't my fault, I couldn't help but feel this way. About 30 minutes later, Harry came back. My husband mentioned, "The heat I feel is getting stronger." If taken literally, it seemed like evil was closing in. We immediately went around the house to search, and I took a broom for self-defense. The sun had fully set, and while it wasn't pitch black, it was quite dim. This only served to drive our fear even further. There was a sudden noise. Neither Harry nor I missed the unusual noise. It came from the back of the house and was clearly accompanied by the presence of someone.
Mary, I'll go check the back. Just in case, please call the police.
I did as he suggested, returning inside to call the police.
Subject secured. Repeat, the subject is secured.
Incredibly, there really was someone lurking there. At a glance, the profile was unmistakably that woman, Emily. Without causing a scene, she was led into a police car by several officers. According to the police, she was found holding arson materials and a lighter. The worst possible outcome that suggested was clear. Once I knew we were safe, I suddenly felt so relieved that my legs gave out.
Are you okay?
Yes, I'm fine. My legs just went weak with relief. Harry's brave actions were commendable, but without my husband's unusual ability, who knows what could have happened. My husband, meanwhile, had calmed down completely and returned to his usual cheerful self.
There's a lot to process, but I guess it all turned out all right. Maybe I'm more incredible than I thought.
More than you think, it's practically supernatural.
Yeah. If I were younger, maybe I could have used it to help people more.
I later learned that Emily had indeed tried to infiltrate the hospital where Catherine was staying, looking for a chance to cause harm. Worse still, this time her target was not Harry or Catherine, but our newborn granddaughter. Behind it all was a selfish grudge fueled by rumors at her transferred location that she was stalking and sent there, forcing her to resign due to losing her place. But on the day, overwhelmed by the presence of so many people, she abandoned her plan and decided to set our house on fire instead. The heat my husband felt was undoubtedly this evil intent. After she was taken away by the police, she awaited the appropriate legal punishment. Just when I thought true peace had arrived, something unexpected happened. Suddenly, people claiming to be Emily's parents showed up.
We are very sorry for the trouble our daughter caused.
When she is released, we'll take her back home and keep a close watch on her.
It seemed they weren't exactly seeking forgiveness, but my husband was not home. He had gone that morning with Harry to pick up Catherine from the hospital. While their sincerity was apparent, I couldn't quite grasp the true intent behind their words. Naturally, I didn't invite them in, but managed the situation at the door and then saw them off. Afterward, a chilling question sprouted in my mind. Why did they know where our house was? Realizing this, I decided it was essential to expedite our previously considered plans to move. After Catherine safely returned home and our family grew by one, I didn't hold back in explaining everything that had happened.
With things like this happening, we really need to move quickly.
My husband took the lead, and together with Harry and me, we set out to sense the energy of various places. Fortunately, we all agreed on a nice plot of land and house that felt right, so we decided to live there as a family of 5. I realized for the first time that I hadn't fully believed in my husband's special ability. But after this ordeal, he proved he could save the lives of our entire family. This is no longer just a special skill, it might truly be a supernatural ability. The new house is a comfortable, barrier-free property. It's not only kind to my husband, but also to our new family member, Sophia. This should give some peace of mind to me, Catherine, and Harry as well. Now, nothing threatens us. I'm genuinely looking forward to starting anew in this place. But still. Hey Harry, can I ask you something?
Yes? What is it? Do you need help with something?
No, it's not that. I was just wondering, are you happy living with us? I mean, you should be enjoying your newlywed life with Catherine, and now with a daughter too.
Is that what you're worried about? I've told you before, I wanted to show my gratitude. I've always longed for a family, so this is perfect, actually more than perfect for me.
I was speechless, and he continued.
Also, I'm deeply grateful to both of you.
Grateful?
Yes. If it weren't for John, who knows where we would be now? And Mary, because you believed in him, everything ended without incident. If either of you had been missing, we wouldn't know how this might have ended. So, this is my chance to return the favor and show my deep gratitude to both of you.
Thank you. This time, even without John's powers, it was clear. He isn't lying. I thought that to myself.